Good morning, everybody. It's Tom Christie back in the painting studio. And I recently did a demonstration on the creation of this ruddy duck drake in winter plumage, both a carving and a painting series. And this video, I've decided during the painting of this bird, I used several techniques with fan blenders and also filbert combs. And I thought, I'm going to break those out and create just a video on techniques using fan blenders and filbert combs. And just so this will be a repeat if you've seen the Ruddy Duck series. But if you haven't, and if you have no interest in a ruddy duck, these techniques can be applied to a variety of birds. So I just want to put these excerpts together in a fan blending and filbert comb painting demo. I'll put that in the painting section as a technique that you might want to use on other types of birds, and I think it might be valuable in that regard. So let's take a quick look at that.
Just a quick overview of fan blenders in general. I've got a big collection that I've collected over the many years of carving wildfowl, and I don't use them a lot, but it's nice to have the various sizes. And to me, the trick in fan blending is how you load the brush and get it so that it's going to give you a nice result. It's very easy to get the brush overloaded and the bristles start to gather up, and then you're going to end up with big lines. We want nice, fine, we want to maintain the spread and use the curvature of the fan blender. And I'll show you, hopefully, how I do that. And we'll use different sizes. As we get closer to the breast, we can go to smaller fan blenders. In some of these tight areas up here, I'm going to do a little bit of fan blending up here in this area and a little bit on the cheeks. Or I might use these filberts, which is a rounded tip brush of various sizes. Or we can use, this is called a filbert comb, which I've had these a long time, but the bristles are split a bit and raked out, and that makes a nice feather effect as opposed to just a solid filbert. This puts a little space and splits between the bristles, and that can be very effective. Okay, let's take a look at some fan blending technique. Instead of trying out techniques on the bird I'm going to paint, I'm going to use this old shoveler foam decoy that I've had around a long time, and it's great for this type of purpose. This probably has 20 coats of paint on it from various demonstrations, but I've got this bird textured. I'm going to use white gesso just so it shows up nice here as I'm going through some of the pros and cons of fan blending. And I am by no means an expert on this subject. I'm just going to talk about what I have learned over time, and there may be better ways of doing this. All right, I haven't practiced this, so we'll see what happens. So I'm going to start with this big fan blender. I'm going to wet the brush and put that in the gesso here. That's too wet. If I try to fan blend with that, let me just show you what it's going to look like. I'm not getting any kind of separation between the bristles. It's just blobbing paint on there. As this brush unloads, I'm going to have more success. But you can see I'm still loaded up in the middle. So I've got some decent brush strokes out here, but the middle is just chunked. It's a technical term, not. So let me reload the brush. I'm going to pat it out on a piece of paper towel. Let's try this again. And that's better. And the stroke I'm using is pressing down and then pulling up as you come back. And that is looking better than this here. Let's take a look if we don't get the enough water in the brush. It's kind of this same, too much water, not enough water, we're going to get the same result. The bristles can't spread out evenly like they do here. So it's really tricky, and you can see the other phenomenon. The brush starts to group up groups of bristles. You can see that, I think, in the video. And that's going to start being a problem. So it's kind of a tricky business to maintain a good load in the brush. Now what I did there is loaded the brush and then dabbed it, pulled it a little on the palette here to get the bristles spread out a little bit more. When it's working, it's a great way to simulate feathers. When it's not, it can be very frustrating. So enough on that, but I just wanted to talk about that before we start painting the bird. And loading the brush is key. Getting those splayed out. Same thing with the smaller. Let's just take a look at a very small. One more quick look. A very small brush for these smaller feathers at the breast. That looks pretty decent. And you just have to go until you start to lose paint, and then you need to reload the brush. But you can see that makes quick work of this feathering, and it gives us a nice effect because the splits between the bristles look like splits on a feather. One more quick technique demo. This is that Filbert comb brush. This is a 3/8 Royal Filbert comb, 930, and I've got the brush loaded, and I'm just going to pull in some feather indications with the tip of the brush. You can see it's splayed out, and it's a nice way to put some feathering either on the smaller feathers of the breast or a head like this. It's just another technique you can use to simulate feathering. Now I've got white gesso on a fan blender. I'm just going to go over this off-white, pull in a few lighter feather tips. One thing I didn't mention before in the fan blending is you can always go back and hit a feather again and give it a little more emphasis. I'm going to come down the side here and into some of this transition area. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, I have a mixture of raw sienna, raw umber, and smoked pearl. I've got that on a little fan blender, and I want to just pull in a few indications of feathers back here on the rump. Now I'm taking some of the original side pocket color, and I'm just going to pull in a few across into the light here from the brown, just to create a little transition. Now I'm going to use that same light colored mix on the side pockets here. And load up the big fan blender and start down the side pockets here. And if I get a little on the scapular area, we can always go back over that. And these feathers are interlocking, so there's not much of a pattern that you can see on these feathers, but they're all kind of laced together. Moving up to the breast, I'm going to go with a smaller fan blender. You can see the brush wasn't loaded properly. Too much water in that stroke. So you need to go back and take a little paint out of the brush. It's a real balance. So I'll keep working the breast. A little farther along. And as I get up to the neck, I'm just trying to make these smaller and kind of blend in to that gray value of the neck. Some of these random little dots you get, they'll be easy to go back with the darker value and just wipe those out later. So it's not going to be perfect. At least I haven't found it to be. That's another example. If the brush kind of gathers up and leaves too big of a mark, you can always go back and split that with a darker value. A lot of these I'm going back and reinforcing the tip of the feather just to give it a little more of a highlight. And there's another big mark that gathered up on me. I'm using a smaller blender or a fan brush to go into the cape and just put some indications of feathers in the cape. Now I've got smoked pearl, and I'm just going to lighten the lower areas here. Near the belly. On this bird, I'm going back with a little of the dark original base side pocket color and just breaking up a few of these. If your bird is going to be in competition, you need to check the rules. Sometimes they don't allow any splits in feathers. But since this is going to a collector, I'm not worried about competition rules, and I just want to break those up a bit. And I'm also looking for areas that on the blender that were too heavy on the fan, and just break them up a bit. I'm just taking some of the off-white on a small fan blender and just highlighting the edges of those lower feathers just to give them a little more lightness. I'm using some of this mix raw umber and gesso, and I put a little more white in it to lighten it up a bit. And I'm using this Filbert comb brush just to put a few feather indications in this area and lighten the area up a bit. You can see, again, it's tricky to get these to work consistently. That's more of what I'm going after. I'll have to go back and repair that one. So this will give us a little texture in this area and lighten it up a bit. That's working better now. Sometimes you have to just work with the brush until it unloads a bit. So I'm going to do that to the center line and then do the same thing on the opposite side of the head. I've got white gesso. I'm going to do the same thing in this white cheek patch. Just to break it up a bit and give it some depth. I'm doing the same thing with a little raw sienna on the crown to put some feather indications through here with this little comb brush. Not a lot, but just to break it up a bit and make it look more like feathers up there. Just a quick look at the finished bird. I sealed it with Tester's Dull Coat and then put Krylon matte finish over that, and then a little Prolux semi-gloss on the bill, and then cover that with the Krylon matte so it's not too shiny.
Okay, well, I hope that demo might be of some use down the road. You're tackling a bird and you want to try fan blending or Filbert comb. And they're great techniques to simulate feathering and is very fast, so good for gunning decoys. Until next time, Tom Christie signing out. Good carving to you. Happy New Year.